You know, I totally forgot. I totally forgot what my intro sounded like already. That I made.
It doesn't matter. I think we're just gonna always forget.
I'll edit it.
Welcome.
In. Yeah, okay. Welcome to our new podcast. This is I'm Nate.
We've had them before, for
Yeah.
sure. I'm Will.
Nathan, whatever, and this is my co-host Will, and I'm his co-host.
Will.
Yeah.
We're each other's co-hosts, platonic co-hosts.
We might have guests in the future, but anyway, if we do have guests, it's not going to change the name of the podcast, which is Two Idiots Talk, which is interpreted however you want to hear it, because
Say it however you want.
Depending on which kind of to and punctuation you use, it could have many different meanings.
But no matter what you interpret it as, remember, we are two idiots.
Yes.
So take none of what we say seriously.
Yeah, this is purely entertainment, infotainment, as you may, I guess you could call it. Is there
Kind of infotainment.
Is there an infotainment category of podcast?
I feel like, I mean, yeah, I mean that one I sent you when we were first talking about this, and for some reason I'm blanking on what it's called. For some reason.
More like entertainment, I guess.
Ooh,
anyway, what is the
right.
podcast today, or what is the topic today for our podcast?
So, we are going to be talking about evolution of human civilization. And more, I'm going to be coming in with some more standard ideas, maybe some fringe stuff, but not too crazy. Nate might throw me off with some ancient alien stuff, because
I've been prepping by watching way too much of a show I used to really like called Ancient Aliens that was on the History Channel, and I also have my copy of Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken. That crazy motherfucker. So yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm going to be talking about some crazy motherfuckers too. So
okay, cool. Yeah, and we're starting from the beginning of humanity and human civilization. Like
well, maybe not
right after
beginning
they
of
wiped
humanity.
out the rest of the Homo genus. Or we, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. So, I guess we can just dive right into it.
Yeah, go for it.
So, we should talk about a little bit of more of a standard model. So, as a lot of people probably know, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I genuinely have no idea. Human civilization, as you might call it, started approximately around 10,000 years ago. And what you probably learned in high school, just like mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell, you learned about the Fertile Crescent.
Yeah.
Over by Egypt and Syria and Turkey.
Tigris and Euphrates, right?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And it's nice and fertile.
Uh-huh.
So around 10,000 years ago is about the time that farming started. And they started farming in the Fertile Crescent because it was fertile. This is also about the same time that the Ice Age ended. So the Ice Age ended around 11.7 thousand years ago.
In that
it was this weird moment of...
Yeah, they were grateful for global warming.
Yeah. The warming was good because they were going through hellfire. I guess the opposite of hellfire.
Hell blizzard.
Yeah, hell blizzard. So, how witty we are.
We're trying really hard.
Please laugh. But about 12.9 thousand years ago was when the Ice Age started to warm up, and then there were a couple episodes of things, and it's debated on what it was. It could be a comet impact. It could be a volcano eruption. Could be both. Things cooled down again.
Do you want to know what the ancient alien theorists say it was?
What?
They think, okay, so given many reports of like ancient civilizations, apparently there was like a war in the heavens between alien races, and like the debris and shit that from the spaceships.
Debris.
It is what caused the planet to warm because of all the, fucking destruction they were causing in the sky. I think there are reports of this in the Mahabharata, which is an Indian religious text.
Ooh, right.
But I don't know. I don't know, like, chronologically if that would line up.
I think it does, because I've also heard of tales, just like flood tales. So, they're like coincidences.
Let's wait till the flood. Let's wait for the flood shit, because I got a lot of shit to say about that.
Oh yeah, okay. But there's a lot of coincidence between myths and things that we think might have actually happened. Like that comet impact likely broke up. It wasn't a comet. It was a comet breaking apart in the atmosphere and raining fucking hellfire onto the planet. But the funny thing is, it didn't heat the planet up. It didn't heat the planet up. It cooled it off. Because the impacts launched ice and debris into the sky, just like a volcano or a nuke, and caused an artificial winter.
Yeah.
That cooled the planet back off, and then it heated back up 11.7 thousand years ago. So if you imagine from the human perspective, you're in the Ice Age, you're going about your fucking business, herding some animals. Well, I guess you're not herding animals, you're hunting animals. And you just see this fucking, it's starting to get warmer and pleasant, and then you just see this fucking fire raining down from the sky, and then everything turns to shit and freezes.
No, then progress
for 1,000
is destroyed.
Years. Exactly, it's like the first Dark Ages. So that's generally the standard model. That's not really disputed. And the first city, Çatalhöyük, I believe it's pronounced, in Turkey, about 9,000 years old, occupied for 2,000 years, about 10,000 population, 9,000 years ago, versus the end of the Ice Age being 11.7 thousand years ago.
Yeah.
Then they find this site, Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah.
That they approximate being 11.5 thousand years ago. So this is 200 years after the end of the Ice Age. So, and there's nothing from nothing. There's no settlement. There's no animal debris. There is animal debris, but there's no sign of occupation of this site. It's purely religious, they believe. The builders filled it in with mounds. So as they built it, when they finished a ring, they filled it in with mounds. And there's 22 rings across 22 acres. The rings are 16 feet. Or no, sorry. The rings are 65 feet across with 16-foot pillars, all carved with astronomical information.
Yeah,
aligned
dude.
Astronomical stuff. So
I remember
hunter-gatherers... Yeah.
I remember this from Ancient Aliens. They were talking about how, at the very beginning of human civilization, somehow the creators of this site at Göbekli Tepe had math and shit to make these perfect circles and right angles and carvings. And when you I highly recommend to the listener to look up pictures of this, because given how old it is, this stuff looks brand new.
It was filled in, so it was perfectly preserved.
Yeah.
And they could date it perfectly. That's how they know exactly how old it is.
And some of the carvings are so intricate and oh man, it's wacky. It's it's just math, yo. I love math. But
it's
how
just
did
math,
ancient people have math?
Right.
Anyway,
this is where I started getting into more fringe stuff even, is because you're telling me that these people who were just herding shit, they didn't settle anywhere. They literally just roamed the landscape. Just one day happened to be 200 years after the end of the Ice Age, after a cataclysmic 1,000 years. There's we're just going to build this giant fucking site. We're just going to do it for no reason, not live here, and not build a city for another 2,000 years. Yeah, that makes fucking sense.
Yeah.
So this gets into
I was trying to think of reasons, because I knew you were going to bring up Göbekli Tepe. Sorry for the immersion breaking clip for the audience there. But I was trying to think of reasons that they would even build this. And I don't know the mindset of ancient peoples, but it seems like they just wanted to flex on the future.
Literally, yeah. Just like the pyramids. Just like the pyramids.
Yeah. Yep.
Literally, they're just this is going to last forever. So they filled their mounds in yeah, they're going to know what we were capable of.
But we don't know, because they didn't leave any written text behind.
Yeah, their carvings are purely iconography.
Yeah.
We're guessing at what it means. There's some that resemble constellations that were talked about thousands of years later, so we think they're about constellations. We don't know for sure, but shit's pretty accurate. It's pretty weird.
All right, I'll stop derailing you. You can keep on your timeline here.
Okay. So yeah, it's Göbekli Tepe. It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But then you begin to think about it in terms of what the world looked like. So a lot of people assume that the Ice Age was just all ice and cold. No, that was Europe. Europe and clearly the northern parts of the world were frozen. Under glaciers, people were not occupying it for very much, pretty much. Or it was just frozen dirt, so you couldn't really do anything besides hunt. So they were forced to be hunter-gatherers up north. But when you go down south, when you go to the places that you don't normally think of being occupied, like the Sahara Desert, and you think about, oh, things were cooler, and then you think about, what would that have looked like? What would a desert have looked like? And it turns out that while the Sahara Desert was dry for a lot of the Ice Age, approximately, let me find the exact dates here, around 14,500 years ago, up to 6,000 to 5,000 years ago, so well after the end of the Ice Age, the Sahara was green. It was grasslands, savannas, forests, huge herds roaming around.
So that's like 7,000 years-ish of forested.
Right, that's 7,000 to 8,000 years of what, like southern Africa. That's what Sahara was. It was full of lakes and rivers. Lake Chad during this time was 10 times as large as it is today.
Whoa!
And
so they had some time to
long
get going.
time. So if they could build Göbekli Tepe that quickly, if they could go from nothing and then 2,000 years later to building Çatalhöyük, which is a full-blown city, undisputed, then
I still
they
don't know
had
what that looks like.
What was that?
I should have looked that up. How do you spell Çatalhöyük?
You can spell it.
I'll do it later.
Okay. It's not like you're gonna look at it and be like, whoa, this is like Roman level, but it's clearly a city. It was occupied, had a lot of people in it for the time. But if they were able to occupy that area that quickly after the end of the Ice Age, then what were they doing with 8,000 years of green Sahara, which is now covered in dunes of sand? We're not doing archaeology there. The only parts of Sahara that we're doing archaeology on are the parts that are still not completely sand. They're just dry savanna pretty much, and that's where we get things like Gabbero, which is a 8,000 or 10,000-year-old gravesite with 20 individuals in it in the middle of the desert.
Where's that?
In Niger.
Okay.
But this isn't in dead center of dunes of sand. This again is like more of just dry area they're still able to dig in.
So what you're saying is there could be a bunch of stuff in the Sahara that we don't even know.
Yeah, just like the Amazon. Just like the Amazon was
maybe they brought the math, dude. Maybe they brought the math.
They brought exactly. So then you get into the wacky shit with dudes like Graham Hancock, who's like a pseudo archaeologist, who thinks that there's a lost civilization that was hyper advanced. He gets into wacky shit where he believes that Mars a couple thousands of years ago was inhabitable. That's the kind of wacky shit that we get into with that guy.
Whoa. We could slow down and make a whole other episode on that.
Yeah, okay.
Lost civilizations in Mars.
Hell yeah.
I'm totally down.
But yeah, so when you think about what the world looked like at this time, and you think about how Egypt was so advanced so quickly, they built the pyramids 4,500 years ago, and for a long time that was thought to be the beginning of civilization.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what was possible. Now, I don't personally think that they were super advanced anything back then, but I'm willing to believe that there might have been Egyptian level or, Göbekli Tepe level well before. We're talking, 20,000 years ago maybe in the middle of the Ice Age.
They didn't have transistors or anything, but they had pretty complex math, obviously.
Exactly, yeah. They spent a long time looking at the stars. They knew I didn't have this in my notes, but it's just fun to talk about. They, by this time, had already calculated the precession of the equinoxes. I can't remember the exact data. I can't remember what civilization it was, but they very quickly figured out the precession of the equinoxes and how long it was. Like, exactly how long it was.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's sick. That's useful.
Yes, it is. It's very useful. And then...
So that must mean that they know that the Earth had an axis.
Exactly.
And that it was
they clearly knew what the magnetic north and south... They knew what the magnetosphere was, partially.
Yeah.
Because Göbekli Tepe is aligned to it.
Yeah. And so, wait, aren't the pyramids aligned to the cardinal directions too?
I think so, and they're also aligned to, I want to say it's Orion. I don't remember exactly.
I think you're right.
And then, if you want to start getting into Egypt here, that's where we get into the Sphinx. Is thought to be around 4,500 years old, but there's some fringe theories that think it's older because the rocks it was built from were dug from directly around it.
Yeah.
And the rocks it was built from have vertical water erosion marks. So some people claim that means that it had to have been either water runoff or rainfall. And that area hasn't experienced rainfall, at least enough to like cause erosion.
Yeah.
Since like 5 to 6 or more thousand years ago. So the Sphinx could very well have been much, much older than the pyramids themselves. However, like I said, I just watched a documentary that they were doing a lot of experiments to figure out how they could have cut the stones for the pyramids so quickly, and they discovered that the limestone they're using, if you pour water on it,
yes,
you can cut it.
Away.
Yeah, you cut it 5 times faster. So then I'm just like, okay, then they probably just mined the stones with water, and then that maybe could have formed those rivulets. But when you look at the marks around the Sphinx from the pit, they're pretty intense. They're huge erosion marks. So I don't know.
Huh. That like maybe they had like water jet cutters or something. But like, how would they develop that much pressure? Also, like, the other thing, not to backtrack too much, but like these stones that they were carrying, like for the Sphinx, for the pyramids, and for like Göbekli Tepe, they're huge. They're like multiple tons, like tens of tons in mass.
Fucking gigantic. Yeah, and like they did experiments to like figure out how to pull these stones, and they think they figured it out somewhat, but mostly only for the smaller of the stones.
Yeah.
Not the King's Chamber in the pyramid, in Nafre's pyramid, I think it is. They're fucking huge. Like, way bigger than anything we could ever hope to carry by human strength. And it's just like, there's like, megalithic sites around the world in different cultures that have these just huge megaliths, like stones just out of nowhere, surrounded by a bunch of smaller stones, and we just cannot figure out how they pulled these things.
And it's like these weren't the only 2 sites in the world that were hauling huge ass rocks.
Yeah.
Like, for what? Like, there's also Easter Island. There's also like the Aztecs and Mayans who are like building huge structures. Maybe not on the scale of like the pyramids, but pretty darn big still. And like, I don't know.
Pretty darn big. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, there's so much speculation you could do, and it's like, that's why I think so many people, myself included, are drawn to like the ancient aliens theories, because like it's such an easy explanation for this shit, and it like gives purpose for them making all of it.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. And like a lot of the most fun are like, maybe the pyramids were like generators, and that's why so many different civilizations around the world made them to like generate energy for the alien overlords. And you're just like, dude, okay.
I fuck with that. Yeah.
And like, to go back to the Sphinx, even a lot of what I've heard from the Ancient Aliens show is that maybe aliens were like doing experiments on humans and animals to like fuse their bodies and like breed like chimera.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like when you look at the hieroglyphs and shit, you're like, okay, I mean, like maybe they weren't that creative and like they actually just had that shit walking around with them and they just chiseled it into some rock. And you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But like,
Yeah.
that, like Occam's razor kind of just points to it. But then you're like, well, this universe is huge as fuck, and I don't even know
Right.
if aliens would want to fuck with the human race. And like it
Right,
kind of
yeah.
detracts from the credit of humans to like say that, oh, we needed aliens to give us math so that we could literally
Right.
do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like
So-
it's especially like old archaeology being like, these brown people couldn't build this. So, yeah, Nazi shit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, aliens could have fucked with people who didn't understand what they were, but we would have understood what they are now, so they don't fuck with us anymore. Who knows? Bob Lazar. We should do an episode on Bob Lazar, maybe.
I'm down. Seriously,
Okay.
I love Bob Lazar.
Another thing with the Sphinx is because of the precession of the equinoxes, constellations move, where they rise moves,
Yeah.
and the people that think that the Sphinx is older, some of them, like Robert M. Schoch, who is a geologist, who originally proposed it being older, so about 7,000 years ago, is starting to think for some reason, and I can't find why, it is actually 10 to 12,000 years old.
Well,
I can't figure out why he thinks this, but one of the things that they point to is about 10 to 12,000 years ago, again at the end of the Ice Age,
yeah.
it was the age of Leo, and Leo was rising in the east with the sun. And there are many experts. It's actually kind of become more commonplace to assume that the Sphinx was originally just a lion, and it was Khafre. I think it's Khafre. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but Khafre sculpted it down to be him because it was just eroded away and it was super old.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that makes more sense. That kind of just negates the whole chimera theory of ancient aliens.
Hey, I mean, I'm always down for some chimeras. I hate it because I can't remember the reference to Full Metal Alchemist. Forgive me, please, I swear.
Also, like, I just realized these people are kind of like assuming the standardization of constellations. Like,
Yeah.
like not every like group civilization around the world is going to have the same.
Right.
Is going to see
exactly.
the same things in the stars. They're just going to know where the stars
Yes, but there is a lot of overlap between separate isolated cultures in the constellations. And I don't know much about constellations in astrology, but I'm pretty sure a lot of isolated cultures represent constellations very similarly. Not necessarily the same, but similarly. And
That's weird.
I'm pretty sure Egypt did have a lion constellation that was Leo. I think. I don't know. Probably wrong. I am dumb.
Because I'm pretty sure I am dumb too. Because I think the constellations we think of today are like Greek, I want to say, or Roman maybe.
Yeah, probably.
But like I know that the Native Americans had their own interpretations as well.
Right.
So.
On the topic of Native Americans, I don't know how much you'll be able to tie in. Oh, wait. Yeah, so you can get into this for the South Americans, but I want to say real quick for North American indigenous folk back then.
Mm-hmm.
So originally we thought that it was the Clovis culture first, which is around 10 to 12,000 years ago. Now it's standard to assume that it's about 20,000 years ago to maybe 30,000 years ago of American occupation originally. But when the Ice Age ended, the conservative view, so not this very standard view, without a comet impact, is that the Canadian ice sheets had a giant lake that got so big that it broke and had 2,000 years of repeated oceanic level flooding. And the conservative estimates for these floods was 190 meters of water flowing over the northeastern landscape of the United States.
Oh, what?
And if you go to Washington and Oregon, you can see these things. There's giant. So do you know how rivers sometimes will pick up gravel and vortexes will form and it'll drill a hole into the riverbed?
No, but that's sick.
Imagine those 30 feet across and like 50 feet deep.
Oh, what the heck?
Giant stone, and then sometimes if you splash water over loose dirt, the dirt will form into these waves because of the water dynamics. Imagine those 100 feet high.
Oh man.
And then Niagara Falls is a cataract. It's a slow wearing away of water. Imagine a cataract. I'm pretty sure it's 13 times the size of Niagara Falls.
What the heck?
So then you get into the more fringe theories of the comet impact happening. So people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson are of the assumption, and there's a whole spectrum between these of like how much each plays a part. Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock are of the mind that the comet impact struck the Canadian ice sheet, vaporized the water, and sent one big flood that was probably 300 meters of water.
Oh. So
and
like
caused all of these.
So like double the size of what?
Double the size. And people were living here at the time.
Yeah.
So, and also, a comet would have set all of North America on fire. Fragments of comet splaying all of North America, and there is a layer, archaeology shows, and this is undisputed, just the cause of it's disputed, a layer of ash nearly across all of America on one part in time across America. So what caused it? Who knows? But it's like a lot of America was set on fire, and then a huge oceanic level flood hit, and people were living there at the time.
Damn. So like, okay, so what's the chronology of that? You said 30,000 years ago?
No. Sorry. That was just to say people were there already. 30,000 years ago-ish was probably the beginning of human occupation in America.
Oh, okay. And then during that, somewhere.
During that, so I'm talking about the end of the Ice Age. So the 12.9 thousand years ago to 11.7 thousand years ago. The 12.9 thousand years ago is when the comet impacted.
Okay.
So right at the beginning of so that's called the Younger Dryas period. Is that 1.2 thousand year period of just destruction of it getting warmer, freezing again, and then slowly getting warmer again. Which, by the way, imagine 1,000 years of the ocean levels rising and then dropping and then rising again very rapidly.
Like, how does that tie into the chronology across the Atlantic of like the floods?
You mean in like Europe?
Like in biblical times and like Gilgamesh and shit.
Well, I mean, it's pretty agreed upon that a lot of biblical stories are based in the times about from 6,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago. Okay. So the beginning of humanity.
And so they had floods too, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. They had ice sheets of their own that were melting. They had ocean levels rising. Like the ocean levels, so the numbers that I found were from 19,000 years ago to 6,000 years ago, the ocean levels rose by 120 meters. And they rose by 1 meter per century. Huh. But during 15,000 to 13,000 years ago, and then from 11,000 years ago to 9,000 years ago, so right before Younger Dryas, and right after Younger Dryas, it was raising by 2.5 meters per century. Now that's kind of slow. It's kind of slow.
I don't know. That seems pretty fast to me. What is it
is
now?
Pretty fast. I don't know. I don't want to look it up because it'll be a lot of clicking and that'll be annoying. But it's not like it's slow in terms of humanity. But if you think about it, if there was an established city somewhere on a coast, and you got to remember most cities were on coasts and rivers. Uh-huh. If there was an established city on a coast, no matter how basic, imagine in 100 years the water level rising by 2.5 meters.
Yeah.
That would just completely destroy the city. Yeah, everybody would be like forced to leave, and like that's 100 years. That's not long enough to establish a city. It takes 1,000 years probably to establish a city.
Especially back then.
Exactly. So there's a lot of people who like to think that there were advanced cities that got dispersed into inlands. Mm-hmm. And then those people either taught the people from the inland who might not have been advanced, quote unquote, or just established their own stuff and did things like Göbekli Tepe, which had all that math and astronomy.
Man, it's almost like we don't know shit about the past of our race.
We don't know shit, dude.
Oh man.
I think we got off track from America, but South America is its own beast. That place is awesome.
Yeah, I feel like the separation of continents is really what did it, you know? And like this is
Oh, and I forgot to mention, by the way, the Sahara Desert's 3.5 million square miles, and continental U.S. is 3.1 million square miles. So that's another frame of reference for the Sahara Desert from the past stuff we were talking about. Anyway.
Whoa. So it's giant.
Huge.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, most of the other stuff I know that relates to ancient aliens is more like Easter Island and like Central America, right. South America. Because you got shit like the Nazca Lines, which are giant formations in the ground, only visible from space. And you're like, what?
Right.
Why did they make this if they can't see it from the ground?
Or mountains that had the mountaintop completely sheared off on like a perfect fucking plane.
Yeah, and if you're not privy to the ancient alien theory, they theorize that the reason that this happened is so that they could have landing strips for fucking spaceships.
It's pretty intuitive.
Whoa! But you're like, how and why, like, devote the time and energy? That's just, like, the biggest question, too, for all of this is just, like, how and why devote the time and energy to build any of this shit? Because
you got to remember, we're in the mindset of modern humans. We have so many things to do. There's constant dog shit happening. We have so much to occupy our time. Imagine what it was like back then when all you had to do was go to work, go home, and eat. And they barely, like, and if that's like Egyptian time, that's like recent, but we're talking old, literally, and like there have been multiple like things, papers written about how hunter-gatherer cultures have more free time than we do today.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything to do. They just stared at the stars and just talked. So it's like, of course they were building stuff, you know? And then you get to like Egypt
farming,
where they were rich and they were like, I
rocks.
want this. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lost my train of thought, but
sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. Yeah, what else? I don't know.
No, you're fine. Interrupt all the time.
So I don't know. I kind of wanted to bring this up just to see if you knew anything about it, but I was in one of the Ancient Alien episodes I was watching. They were talking about Teotihuacan, which is in like relatively close to Mexico City right now, like in modern day, and there's pyramids there too. And under the pyramids, they found a giant pool of fucking refined mercury, like liquid mercury.
What the fuck?
Yeah, which isn't possible in nature.
Yeah.
And this city was constructed, I want to say, like, just after 1000 BC. So, like, not even that long ago.
So a long time ago. Well, yeah, not a long time ago. What we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like,
still long before advanced anything.
Yeah. So
that's in the middle of. Wait, where was this?
In the middle of Mexico. In Mexico City.
Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. So like there was a lot of theories that I thought were cool. Like maybe they had electricity and like superconductors and whatnot. But I don't know. If you didn't have theories, I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was wacky.
I've never heard about that. All I've read about America generally is North America in terms of that ancient stuff, and South America in recent stuff. Fun fact: I believe the first city or culture staying put culture that had a growing population was in Peru. And they didn't have farming, and it was purely fish-based.
Whoa.
They developed a large city purely on fishing, which goes to show you don't need farming to develop a city. So another reason to be like, why weren't we developing stuff in the middle of the Green Sahara? Now, some people will say things like, humans have been around for 200,000 years, so why didn't we make shit? And that is not a good way to think about it, because 200,000 years ago, we were anatomically the same, but we were not mentally the same. We were think of the most primitive culture you can in the world. Not that they're below us or anything, but just think along the lines of how their minds might work and their culture and whatnot.
Their perspective, mostly.
Yeah, and reduce that even further down. Like, humans that long ago were not to our level in terms of, like, culture and communication and putting ideas together and whatnot. So it makes sense that we didn't have things for that long. And Neanderthals were only... The last Neanderthal was 40,000 years ago, I think, something like that. Europe wasn't occupied until about 40,000 years ago, partially because of the ice sheets. So it kind of makes sense that there's not, like, more around the planet, but everywhere you think that things might have been, like the coasts of Africa and the Green Sahara around the rivers and lakes, which is where we do find things when we do dig into the Sahara, that's where everything would have been, and all of that would have been either destroyed by the floods, which we have, like, almost no underwater archaeology going on except for boats, modern boats.
Yeah.
And we don't dig in the middle of the desert. So it's like there's probably so much. And only recently we found things in the Amazon. Like, there was a whole city. I read a whole book. It was like The Curse of the Monkey God or something like that, about a city that was found in the middle of the Amazon, insanely huge, well-preserved.
Oh, yeah, that was, like, covered
hidden.
in, like, forestation, basically.
Yeah. So it's just a forest is enough to, like, hide things.
Mm-hmm.
Which also, fun fact on that story, the guy who found... Two of the people who found that went on that expedition were bit by a particular bug that carried a particular disease that is uncurable and is flesh-eating and will eventually dissolve their entire face.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
So that's why it's called Curse of the Monkey God. There was a curse on the city, supposedly, and that's probably what it was.
Dang. I remember hearing about that, too. I think they talked about that on Ancient Aliens because they had a bunch of, like, secret, weird-ass chambers that didn't seem to serve any purpose in that city or something.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't seem to serve any purpose. Just like the pyramids. The rooms in the pyramid are empty.
Yeah. I don't know.
It just goes. It's that feeling of sublime awe where you look at something and you're just like, you cannot comprehend it emotionally or logically, and you're just like left with this like weird fear of like not understanding something, and it's so weird. So you turn to anything you can, and that tends to be either ancient aliens or deities or anything.
Yeah.
Not to piss off anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm struggling with the chronology too because it just seems like
right. Yeah, I am bouncing back and forth, so I apologize.
So no, I don't think it's your fault. I think it's because I don't know where to place like the different shit across the planet.
Right.
Given like the Nazca lines or like Easter Island, because our dating technology, I don't know, like if you can trust much.
Well, modern dating technology is like using multiple methods and like crossing them. So I trust modern dating methods pretty well. There's even a dating method they used for a room in the Sphinx. There are parts of the Sphinx that don't receive any sunlight.
Wait, the Sphinx has rooms in it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
What?
Yeah. There's a chamber underneath it that they haven't dug into that they're pretty sure is a storage room of some kind.
Shit, I didn't know.
But there's rooms in the Sphinx, and I mean, again, I all of these things I could be wrong about in some way or another. But there's rooms either in the Sphinx or in one of the areas near it that doesn't receive sunlight. And there's a test that they have now where they can take some rock and calculate the last time it saw sunlight.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's another dating technique that's really fucking cool.
Okay, I guess I trust dating technology, but like again, chronology is hard, especially when it's all spread out geographically.
Chronology is hard and also really dogmatic. A lot of people, the establishment of old places, like, for example, Egyptologists in Egypt, are so mired in the ego of discovering something and the mysticism behind it that they sometimes will refuse the science and then not let it be talked about. So there are some times where supposedly academic sources can be not super trustworthy, but that's just like takes some research.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
Luckily there are other researchers that kind of say fuck you and explain things the proper way. So there's enough people in the scientific world and research world that generally I feel like we can trust it.
So I guess we really only have like natural disasters to blame for the history of our race not being transferred effectively.
Wait, what?
Like it seems like all the floods and the asteroids hitting and like even plagues possibly just wiped out the information collected by these ancient civilizations.
Yes, absolutely.
Which sucks.
I know. I want so bad to understand the history of humanity. It's like my favorite topic, but there's nothing.
Well, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to talk about, and I feel like I'm just getting really frustrated because a few minutes ago I started echoing really bad from your mic somehow.
Oh, boy. Oh,
so I've been struggling to talk.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. That's really weird. I don't have my speaker's not on. I shouldn't be echoing.
I've been doing my best to work through it, and then I just hear my echo, and I'm just like, my brain is frying. So I guess that's our conclusion of ancient civilizations versus ancient alien theories. Honestly, do your own research because, again, we are just two idiots talking. Pretty
much, if this interested you, use this as a starting point to look into things. We've given you some names and dates. It should be a little easier if you'd like to read about it. So
yeah, just remember the important shit like Göbekli Tepe and those two guys that Will kept talking about.
Yes. Those two guys. What, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, I believe. They're kind of wacky, but they talk about interesting stuff. Don't take everything they say seriously. But
skepticism is important.
There we go.
And on that note, I'll play us out.
Bye-bye.